好，欢迎来到电影娱乐报，我是主持人陈巧玲。这次呢要看的新片是改编自真实案件的《恩德培行动》。故事呢是发生在1976年，有一架载满以色列犹太人的客机，被一群呢来自德国却自称是巴勒斯坦解放组织的恐怖分子给劫持了。而劫机者他敏感的身份也瞬间引爆了两国的危机。在男女主角部分呢，则分别找来了超级会演在《控制》里面的心机人妻罗莎蒙派克。她在新片里面呢，剽悍狂野的素颜演出是让人相当惊艳。而被全球粉丝昵称为“德国一哥”的欧洲影帝丹尼尔·布尔，则诠释出呢恐怖分子内心的挣扎与纠结。到底这个故事会怎么发展呢？幕后特辑，我们就一起来欣赏吧。
This is a hijack situation!
We have to act.
Everybody, this is a hijack situation! Nobody knows!
Welcome to Entebbe, Uganda. We call upon revolutionary movements everywhere to focus the attention of the world on the Palestinian people's struggle.
There are 239 passengers. 83 are Israeli.
Germans hijacking a plane load of Israelis. Jews.
You must know how this looks to the rest of the world.
I know how this looks, but it's not the reality.
We don't want to hurt anyone. We're humanitarians.
We need to find out if Idi Amin is helping them.
We can't afford to negotiate with terrorists.
That's political suicide.
If your government do not negotiate, I will kill 2 children every 24 hours. Starting with these 2.
Well, in 1976, a plane that was travelling from Tel Aviv in Israel to Paris and had a refueling stop in Athens was hijacked by 2 German terrorists and 2 Palestinian terrorists who were working on behalf of the PFLP. And they boarded the plane in Athens, where security was notoriously lax. Athens at that time, there were many strikes. It was the kind of, I suppose, mecca for terrorists. 4 terrorists boarded the plane with false passports, and soon after takeoff, took over the plane, took over the cockpit, kept the passengers under control with grenades and handguns and explosives, and diverted the plane to Entebbe, Uganda.
Yeah, well, I was a young man who was coming from a rather normal bourgeois family, and then worked as a publisher, an intellectual, very left-wing, who then started to, get involved in this terrorist movement and this group, which is called the Revolutionary Cells, willing to, to also commit violent acts. And he was, it was very typical for that time. He was a young man who was repulsed.
There was a policy not to negotiate with terrorists. This is what Perez wanted.
But if anybody tries anything, I will throw this grenade.
Everyone stand your shit, don't move. I have a bar.
C'est quoi ce bruit? Sûrement quelqu'un qui a fait tomber une clope, je vais aller voir.
Sit down! Sit!
The hostages were all held in a disused, very grotty, grimy, dirty terminal, the second terminal, some distance away from Uganda's flushy new terminal, and they were held for 6 days before trying to have their demands met. And what they wanted was the release of various political prisoners in Germany, in Israel and elsewhere. And they threatened that if they didn't have their demands met, they'd start to kill the hostages. Well, just at the point where that ultimatum was, reaching its end, the Israeli Defense Forces mounted an absolutely incredible rescue mission, with probably about 80% of the information they needed to carry it out. So it was a very brave and very daring mission, which also sent the Israeli High Command into some kind of turbulence, because, the failure of such a mission would have reflected very, very badly.
There were 2 books about the revolutionary cells that I read. I had read the Baader-Meinhof complex in the past, so it is very much linked to all these different movements. I've also read a book about the movement of 2nd June, just to remind myself of all the historical events. And then I also watched a lot of documentaries and films dealing with that time, also to see and get a feel for the time, for the way the people looked like, talked like, moved like, etc.
This is a hijack situation! Nobody knows!
Welcome to Entebbe, Uganda.
No hijacker has ever taken a plane this far away.
The hijackers threaten to kill them all unless their demands are met.
There could be no negotiations with terrorists.
Surprise and speed is the key.
This is absolutely crazy.
Here we go. Okay, gentlemen. This is it.
7 days in Entebbe.
Lemoyne's role in the hostage situation, he really tried to protect everyone, make sure that everyone was staying safe. Because at one point they start to separate the Jewish passengers from the rest. And that was the beginning of everything started escalating to like a nightmare for everyone, because they all went through the Second World War at this point.
And I don't think Perez thought there was much chance of saving the passengers, but he thought it's better for them, for the whole of Israel and for dealing with terrorists, that you don't give in. And then it became a challenge to make it work, and it worked. There wasn't this overriding heroic plan to, we're going to do it, guys, we can do it, we can conquer the world. There wasn't that. It was a muddling through.
This film itself, the way it's structured, it's almost 3 different movies in one. We're following what happens on the ground with the hostages, we're following what's happening in Israel with the Israeli Defense Force, and we're following what's happening on the political end. And so for each of those narratives to have their own feel cinematically, I think will be really powerful once it's all cut together.
We can put the men on a Hercules and land at the airport at night.
Was that runway lights?
Yeah.
That's great.
I don't think Rabin will go for that.
What if we drop a small parachute force instead?
A parachute force would be dispersed over too large an area.
So we could use Lake Victoria. Either parachute in with inflatable boats at night, or cross from Kenya.
Ehud, there are crocodiles in Lake Victoria. Plus, it's impossible to come all the way across the lake from Kenya in rubber boats unnoticed. This is not a drill, okay? It's the real world.
Mata, why don't we send in the commandos, take the airport, and then wait to hear from Amin?
Well, if you want to take control of the airport, you're gonna have to use a much bigger force.
Could you run some numbers for me? I want to present a plan tomorrow. Also, cause the Special Forces unit to base.
Of course, Defense Minister.
Thank you.
No problem.
I think I know why Rabin wanted Mota here.
He wants to stop us from coming up with a viable military option. That way he doesn't have to make a decision.
He wants to blame you for this crisis.
That's politics.
This is a hijack situation! Nobody knows!
In 1976.
Welcome to Entebbe, Uganda.
While the whole world watched,
Hijackers threatened to kill them all.
passengers became hostages.
No hijacker has ever taken a plane this far away. It's a huge risk.
Hostages became heroes.
It's our duty to take care of those people inside.
And heroes
Any rescue force would have to approach unnoticed.
became legends.
Here we go.
7 days in Entebbe.
欢迎大家继续回到电影娱乐报。恩德培行动呢，在历史上其实是被视为是教科书等级的突袭传奇。因为呢，当时劫机事件发生之后，以色列政府是经过了多次和恐怖分子谈判都没有结果，所以最后决定要用最短的时间来解救人质，也因此呢，这就成为历史上最传奇的闪电战役。新片呢，不但是重现当时复杂的政治情势，导演还特别在开拍之前为演员们打造特训，和以色列的国防军一起训练，拍摄场景也力求真实。所以呢，精彩幕后特辑，我们就来听听导演和演员们的分享吧。
This is a hijack situation!
We have to act.
Prime Minister, this is our problem.
There are 239 passengers on board. 83 are Israeli.
In 1976, a plane that was traveling from Israel to Paris was hijacked by 2 German terrorists and 2 Palestinian terrorists and diverted the plane to Entebbe, Uganda.
It's a very complex film and a very complex situation.
It becomes clear what drove each group.
Anyone who tries to resist me will be shot.
I was drawn to the way that you get inside the minds of hijackers.
You must know how this looks to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I know how this looks. But it's not the reality.
Negotiating at the time was very unpopular in Israel. And so there was a political fight.
This is about the survival of Israel.
We're following what happens on the ground with the hostages. We're following what's happening in Israel with the Israeli Defense Force. And we're following what's happening on the political end.
If we want to take control of the airport, we're going to have to use a much bigger force.
And it's impossible to move a force of that size 4,000 kilometers undetected.
There's uncertainty on all sides. There's this debate about morality or what's the right thing to do. I mean, you even see that on the part of the terrorists.
I want to throw bombs into the consciousness of the masses.
And what if you have to throw a real bomb, my friend?
All the officials in Uganda use a black limousine. That gives us the element of surprise.
It was unprecedented at the time. If it wasn't true, you wouldn't believe it.
As soon as they know we're coming, they kill the men, the women, the children.
So, they are selecting Jews and you want to negotiate.
For us, the Israelis, it's like the biggest operation ever.
We have to act. There can be no negotiations with terrorists.
We are telling a real story. We aim for the truth.
Operation Thunderbolt will precede this plan.
Here we go.
Whatever happens, we did the right thing.
They said fine, and Tim Bevan from Working Title called me up. And do you want to do this? They sent me the screenplay. I already knew about Entebbe. I read the screenplay and I had ideas on how to continue the development of the script.
I was first attracted to the project because of Jose's passion for it. I read the script, I was intrigued, but I wanted to know whether the person who was making this film was doing it because it was a film that was ready to go, because there was a script, because it was financed, or whether they really had a gut need to make this, to tell this story. And when I met Jose, I just knew that he had to do this story. I mean, interesting, his career, as you'll know, started with a hijack movie, his documentary Bus 174, and so in a way he's coming full circle back to a hijacking, and he doesn't want. And I knew at that meeting he didn't want to make an easy movie. He didn't want to give the audience a relaxing experience of goodies and baddies. He wanted to really examine the nature of all parties involved in this.
He has a very contagious energy. He's like a proper South American director, and was interesting to see the clash between so many cultures in this film, Maltese and English and Brazilians. But I'm such a fan of his work. He's able to translate this vibrant, restless energy into the film. You have to be very prepared because he always comes up with new ideas last minute, but this is a very refreshing process, I think. So it's not, you know, a conservative, normal way of working. You have to be always prepared to reinvent scenes, to do something new, to improvise. So it's a documentary kind of way of approaching. But it's to me as an actor, it was a very rewarding and nice experience.
Jose's very open to what these dynamics are rather than his idea of what they should be, and he just lets it breathe. And so being able to dive into this has been a real. It's like we've been waiting in the starting block and now we're running the race. You know, speaking to Jose, he has the movie cut together in his head already, and so he knows exactly what he needs. And so you just feel safe with that, and he's very straightforward, and he knows what he wants.
Jose and the DOP Lula together are such a good team. Yeah, they speak Brazilian, which I don't understand, and I think it's beautiful. It sounds, you know, funky, and they bring rhythm. They keep everyone on their toes. And for a movie like this, I think it's crucial that no one really knows what's going to happen next, like a kind of a hostage situation, but in a very clever way.
We've got weapons and bombs.
This is a hijack situation!
Welcome to Entebbe, Uganda.
Anyone who tries to resist me will be shot.
We have to act. There could be no negotiations with terrorists.
Witness the most extraordinary rescue mission.
Are you ready to kill? Are you ready to die?
The world has ever seen. Seven days in Entebbe.
Well, Rosamund plays Brigitte, and she is the second German terrorist. We were a couple, and then became both part of that movement and decided to participate in that operation. There were some other members of the group that thought it wouldn't be a good idea, but these two, Brigitte, Rosamund's character, and mine, Bose, decided that they wanted to participate. Rosamund has that capacity of acting in such an intense way that I rarely have seen in the work of other actors. I've been admiring her for a long time, and I was so happy that she was playing that part because I couldn't think of anyone better. I was very impressed by her German. We had a couple of scenes in German, and she did an incredible job.
When I was suddenly told that, you know, that it was to be me and Daniel, and it didn't really make sense for scenes in which we spoke to each other not to be in German, you know, it's a pretty daunting challenge because I don't speak German, although I had learnt some German in school. But I thought, if I can pull this off, it'll be so cool, and it'll, you know, if we can have multiple languages in this film, it will give this Babel quality.
This is a hijack situation! Nobody knows!
They have TNT all around the building.
4 hijackers.
Nobody move!
100 commandos.
There could be no negotiations with terrorists.
1 legendary operation.
Here we go!
4 stars. It will leave you gasping for air. 7 days in Entebbe.
In 1976, a plane that was traveling from Tel Aviv to Paris and had a refueling stop in Athens was hijacked. 4 terrorists boarded the plane with false passports, and soon after takeoff took over the plane, took over the cockpit, kept the passengers under control with grenades and handguns, and diverted the plane to Entebbe, Uganda.
There are 239 passengers on board. 83 are Israeli.
The hostages were all held in a disused, very grotty, grimy, dirty terminal. And they were held for 6 days before trying to have their demands met. And they threatened that if they didn't have their demands met, they'd start to kill the hostages.
We had one of the Israeli soldiers who was actually there and a real witness. He was on set, and so he, of course, had his individual perspective on this event, and it was very interesting to talk to him.
It was a very dangerous operation. There were many risks. We had 1 day to practice. We came to the base Friday morning. We practiced until Saturday morning, and then we went to the airbase and we took off. Well, it was far away from home, so there was the whole process of flight. There was the risk of being detected by hostile radar systems. And then there was the technical aspect of approaching from the plane to the airport. All that was left was to run as fast as possible.
We stop for nothing until all the hostages are safe.
Here we go.
As soon as they know we're coming, they start to kill the men, the women, the children.
There can be no negotiations with terrorists.
Why are you here?
I want to throw bombs into the consciousness of the masses.
And what if you have to throw a real bomb, my friend? Have you killed? You think you can do it? You choose to pick up arms and fight. You choose to come here. You could have a nice life in Europe.
2 weeks leading in before shooting that Jose was very adamant that we have to train with members of the Israeli Defense Force and basically have a boot camp and work on the choreography of the raid, but also just, you know, boot camp for us actors who, you know, we're working with a lot of guys who are ex-military. And so for us who are not ex-military, getting us acquainted with certain protocols, certain procedural things.
Patience is the biggest challenge, you know. You have to wait, and you have to be a real hostage somehow, so you have to wait a long time. So with fake sweat, which attract flies, so you have lots of flies. So you can't complain because it's the real situations to a 2%.
When you show up and you've got this whole world that's been created, it really makes our job very easy to just dive into it. And once you've got gunshots going off next to you and squibs rigged to the ground blowing up, you know, you just execute.
Plus, out of the blue, they will pull off those big cinematic.
So we'll see what ends up being there.
Welcome to Entebbe, Uganda. We call upon revolutionary movements everywhere to focus the attention of the world on the Palestinian people's struggle.
There are 239 passengers. 83 are Israeli.
Germans hijacking a plane load of Israelis. Jews.
You must know how this looks to the rest of the world.
I know how this looks, but it's not the reality.
We don't want to hurt anyone. We're humanitarians.
We need to find out if Idi Amin is helping them.
You can't afford to negotiate with terrorists. That's political suicide.
If your government do not negotiate, I will kill 2 children every 24 hours. Starting with these 2.
We didn't agree to this. I'm not a Nazi.
If you're having doubts, you should leave.
Why are you here?
I want to throw bombs into the consciousness of the masses.
Are you ready to kill? Are you ready to die?
They have TNT all around the building.
We have to act.
As soon as they know we're coming, they start to kill.
They want the world to watch.
Shut up, all of you! Anyone who tries to resist me will be shot.
导演荷西一向是以写实的风格来触动人心，更擅长大规模的动作场景，曾经拿下柏林金熊奖。而且呢，今年执导的艾美奖影集《毒枭》更是口碑与收视双赢。而他的新片就是今天介绍给大家的《恩德培行动》，希望大家会喜欢喽。我是巧玲，电影娱乐报，我们下次再见，拜拜。